I was initially going to center this video on Indigenous history and aim to retell Indigenous stories in the form of a dish. After much deliberation, I've concluded my Indigenous Digital Media Studies course has taught me far more than to learn about history simply. Throughout the course, and with the help of sources and discussions and teachings, I learned not just about the importance of the land and the resources, but also the people who taught me to love and appreciate the land and the resources. This media creation that I've made functions by offering a direct opportunity for self-reflection and visual sovereignty in a way that honors Indigenous epistemologies while exploring my own identity. This is going to be a dish into my identity, or more specifically, a series of dishes, because these foods don't necessarily mix. I'm going to be cooking a meal that might be odd in your eyes, but every ingredient is one that holds the utmost significance in my life. Chef Joel White Duck Redette has been a guiding light for this project, particularly his video on food as medicine for the spirit, demonstrating how to honor Indigenous ways of thinking even while cooking. In Decolonization is for Everyone, Nikki Sanchez discusses picking up the work of decolonization as our own, making it our own. So as I pursue this area of research and self-expression, which is very new to me, I'm constantly going to ask, where did this food come from? How did it get here? And who can I thank for it? Now, biltong is a traditional South African food, but my relation to this meat goes far beyond saying it's merely South African and I'm South African. My sister, dad, and I love camping. Now, not to invalidate those whose minds went directly towards glamping, but no, I mean the real kind of camping. When I think back over the past years, my mind always drifts to the annual camping trips that we take. These trips make up my identity. They taught me the value of appreciating the rainy days, the windy days, and even the storms, because just like God's promise, which I'll always reflect on, there's always a rainbow. Plus, I've caught some pretty great trout in the rain. Without getting sappy and returning to biltong, camping meals must be protein and calorie dense while being light beyond belief. You hike and paddle way too many kilometers in a day to carry anything heavy. Biltong is the meat that Canadians have looked at and heard about, and they've said, ew, gross, you dried in your basement, and then they try it and they say, wow, it's even better than beef jerky. And no, the two are not comparable. Biltong was created by the Indigenous people of South Africa over 400 years ago, who preserved their meat by curing it and hanging it with salt to dry, the same way that we do today. When the Europeans arrived, they altered the curing process. Here they go again, including vinegar and spices such as pepper and coriander. At the time, biltong was a crucial part of sea travel due to its durability, making it the perfect snack because of how long it lasted, its health benefits, and its lean protein. Needless to say, it's the perfect camping snack for the same reasons. In recent years, added memories have come to mind when I think of biltong. With it being a meat that's air-dried whole, my pup becomes obsessed with the drying spot. Now, being a beagle, she ensures we know she's waiting for the biltong, just as eagerly as we are. On to the next component, millipap. Millipap is a South African meal that I loved growing up, and I loved it even more because most of my friends didn't even know how to pronounce the word pap. My brother always encouraged me to make the dish sweeter because he and I had the sweetest of teeth, so we had our own twist on the dish. I would add milk and sugar, and just like that, it went from dinner to dessert. As per traditional South African storytelling and the passed down knowledge from my family and friends, the Cochin, recognized as the nation's earliest inhabitants, primarily lived in South Africa as hunter-gatherers. Subsequently, Black people brought agriculture to the region by cultivating maize, which is used to prepare millipap. Like many Indigenous foods, the little scholarly research existing on the topic credits the oh-so-great Christopher Columbus. In 1498, he wrote from an island in the Caribbean, and the translation is the first to mention maize, a crop he encountered in the New World. The scholarly research and passed down stories suggest the introduction of the term maize into European languages resulted from the exploration and colonization of the Americas, underlining the significance of the crop in Indigenous culture and agriculture. Now, there has never been a day this far in my life that I haven't had fruit or overindulged in fruit. My grandma had always been supportive of this addiction, only cutting the freshest and most juicy fruit. One of my favorites is the Cape gooseberry, or as we call it, the hunterberry. In Indigenous terminology, the fruit is called the Syphilis parvana, and in Afrikaans, the aflaat. A key memory that I have, despite it being over a decade ago, is being 8 years old, sitting in my family's fruit field and munching away on gooseberries. Apparently, I spent far too long eating up all the fruit they spent the entire year growing. Paired with the gooseberries are kiwis. These are my mother's favorite. They seem to be her answer to everything, and that said, kiwis are the answer to everything, because mother knows best. In Uploading Selves, which is one of the sources we looked at as part of this course, authors quote Jackson, who discusses how the act of narrating our lives brings our private experiences of the world into the public domain, where we objectify these experiences, manipulate them, give them meaning, and through this process, we gain a sense of agency over our worlds. By opening up this space, this was my aim, and it was an aim of self-discovery. Community and sharing are common Indigenous focuses, and my identity is composed of these focuses. In my life, meal sharing has been a time of togetherness, playing the role of bridging people together and cooking for one another as a cultural practice. My family of 6 was alone in Canada for most of my life, but recently our group grew with 2 other families immigrating from South Africa. Every weekend, we gather for meal sharing, and we take this time to show appreciation for one another and the various skills that surround the dinner table when we meet. From all walks of life, this time to share connects us. Now, while making this video, you might be thinking that these were all the knowledges that were drilled into my head, and I would love to say so, but absolutely not. My family was around me the entire time that I was cooking, which made this project itself be a bonding experience for us. So it's one that I treasure. Now, coming onto YouTube with these perspectives that represent this amazing meal for what it truly is and how I use it in Canada while embracing Indigenous epistemologies and my family, this counters mainstream media representations, and it offers the perspective that my culture's food is beautiful and boy, is it tasty. Data describes decolonization as recovering from colonial impact and restoring Indigenous identities, languages, and experiences. Reading from the Handbook of Critical Indigenous Methodologies, the authors further describe decolonization as a continuous process of anti-colonial struggle that honors Indigenous approaches to knowing the world, recognizing Indigenous land, Indigenous peoples, and Indigenous sovereignty. This project that I've created works with Indigenous epistemologies by acknowledging my deep connections with cultural food, where the connections formed, where the food came from, and then thanking those who are involved in keeping the traditions alive. This project has not only encouraged my learning to engage with family, to engage with the past and face traditions for what they are, but it's also encouraged me to want to pass down this knowledge further.